Okay, so this is the third and probably final installment in my ongoing series of video responses to DJW. But DJW, I don't actually see any reason why this should be the last time that I communicate with you. And indeed, I would very much enjoy some reciprocation. If you have any comments, questions, or criticisms concerning the content of any of my YouTube uploads, please run those by me so that we can have a Socratic dialogue, so that we can kind of debate the issue of abortion in a way that will hopefully be educational and enlightening for both of us. Yes, but also, and more importantly, educational for our respective audiences. And I know that your audience is significantly larger than mine. I'm a little envious, so I can't completely repay the favor, but I would certainly be very obliged if you allowed me to enjoy this privilege. Now then, the final issue brought up in your video that I wanted to discuss, as I said, there were three, I've already talked about two, but the final issue was a claim in which you stated that we should not ask if the fetus is a human, but we should ask if it is a person, in order to determine if abortion should be legal. And I added that last part, in order to determine if abortion should be legal, because I don't think that you are saying we should completely ignore the scientific status of a fetus. Like, if it was a biological textbook, I don't think that you're saying we should censor those and they should just completely skip over that part. I don't think that you're saying that in life we should just ignore that question and never ask it. I think that you mean specifically as it regards and as it is relevant to the legality of abortion. And if not, then I challenge the postulate that there is any such thing as a question that should not be asked. All questions should be asked. Inquiries are the shovels with which we mine for knowledge. And knowledge, education, is always preferable to ignorance. We need no justification for asking a question except finding that answer. The answer does not have to have any pragmatic use. It is the pursuit of knowledge for knowledge's sake, and we must endeavor to know everything. That is my personal belief. That is my personal political, philosophical, theological, moral, ethical. That's just my stance all around. Knowledge, truth, these are things that we must always pursue. But again, I don't think that you were talking in these terms. I think that you meant in order to determine if abortion is legal. So essentially what you are saying is that our rights should be dependent upon our status as persons. If we phrased your argument in the form of a syllogism, premise one would be that a fetus is not a person, it is a non-person. Non-persons don't have rights, or only persons have rights. And it would lead to the conclusion that abortion should be legal. However, I challenge that second premise. I don't necessarily challenge that first premise. I don't think that there's any point in doing that, because personhood is completely subjective, and you can't objectively argue about a subjective concept. But if we do look at that second premise, I would argue that our rights should not be established upon personhood. I would argue that whether or not a zygote is a person, it should have rights. Because again, personhood is a subjective concept. I would argue that we should establish our rights not upon the shifting sands of philosophical personhood, but upon the reliable and rock-solid foundation of scientific humanity. Making our rights dependent upon our status as persons is throwing them to the political winds. Not that long ago, here in America, people said that blacks weren't persons. If you read Uncle Tom's Cabin, there is an issue in which two African-American slaves get married. But the marriage is nullified because they are not considered persons, and only persons can engage in marriage. So they pull them apart. Now, why didn't they believe that these individuals were persons, even though they were sentient, even though they had feelings, intelligence, even though they were self-aware, even though they had all of the characteristics that you listed in your video? Well, because those weren't significant in that culture. Now, in our culture, these are significant characteristics, or at least in the liberal progressive culture of America. These are valued characteristics. They are significant to us because we are raised in an environment where we attach significance philosophically, morally, and ethically to these characteristics. But that's not universally true. Other cultures don't attach moral significance to intelligence. Some cultures, our own culture not that long ago, attached this significance to race. Now, you claim that a zygote is not a person because it's not intelligent, and intelligence is significant to you, probably because of the culture in which you were raised. But in the pro-life culture, as compared to the pro-choice culture, humanity, scientific humanity, is something to be valued. that is significant to them. So they say that a zygote is a person because it has scientific humanity, and scientific humanity is valued by them. You value intelligence, so a zygote is not a person. They value humanity, so a zygote is a person because it does have scientific humanity. Why should we establish a system that prefers your culture, the pro-choice culture, over the pro-life culture, over the racist culture? Why should we be cultural and philosophical imperialists? This is ethnocentrism at its finest. This is nothing more than bullying a minority, except at this point, the pro-choice are the minority. They're no longer the majority, which really shouldn't matter. That's popular sovereignty. But the point is that there is no reason why we should favor your culture over ours. And yet, if we are making our rights dependent upon personhood, this is exactly what we are forced to do. We either accept your philosophical definition of the term and ignore our own, or we allow everybody to use their own definition of the term. But if we do this, it's anarchy. So we are stuck with ethnocentrism, forcing people to accept a system that acknowledges and respects our established philosophy, or anarchy, allowing everyone to use their own. And if we do accept the later option, then we are forced to allow the KKK to lynch blacks. But I don't like anarchy, I don't like ethnocentrism, and so I argue that humanity should suffice. Because humanity is not a philosophical, it's not a cultural condition, it is a simple scientific status. A human is merely a member of the species Homo sapiens. And while philosophers from every different culture will argue about whether or not I am a person, no matter where you are, no matter what culture you're raised in, scientists are going to agree that I am a member of the species Homo sapiens. And I can show you that I am a member of the species Homo sapiens because that's an objective condition. I cannot show you that I am a person because that's subjective. You use subjective thought processes to justify something unto yourself. You use objective processes to justify it to other individuals by appealing to their reason. But I can't do that with personhood. It's not a reasonable condition. It's not objective. It's subjective. So in your system, I can't demonstrate that I have rights. But in a system by which my rights are dependent upon humanity, not personhood, I can demonstrate that I have rights. And indeed, I can do so without forcing somebody else to accept a system that favors my culture. Instead, we can accept a non-cultural institution which will provide us with a definition that has pragmatic application and provides us with consistency as well as the ability to objectively demonstrate that we have rights. Therefore, I argue, once again, that we should establish our rights upon the reliable and rock-solid foundation of scientific humanity and not philosophical personhood. A zygote should have rights because it is scientifically a human.